Hi everyone and welcome. I'm Mindy Eggen and today's video is part of a video hop featuring the Altenew January 2025 release. I will have the next person in the video hop linked down below in the video description along with the links to the supplies that I'm using today. There is also a giveaway, and to be entered into the giveaway, leave comments and winners will be chosen among the comments. Now, what I would like you to do is after you see the video, let me know what your favorite product is from this video. This is a look at the project I'm going to be creating today using the Build a Garden set. But I do have a few other products that I want to share with you real quick. So, this first one is the stencil art. I do really love this. And one of the stencil layers in this I wanted to point out, there are a few different layers to create those roses that you see on the graphic off on the left-hand side. But look at this script. I love stencil scripts like this. So I wanted to point that out because I think that's a really unique stencil. Then, of course, there are coordinating dies, so you could cut out your stenciled images as well. The next one we have is the Carnation. So this is a layering die set. Of course, it has their keyhole system. I will be creating with this a little later on this month, so stay tuned for that. Another fun die set that I thought was worth mentioning is the Houseplants. So if you really love houseplants or you have a friend that does, this is a beautiful set to create with. And then we have the butterfly garden. This is the Craft Your Life project kit, I believe. And I am going to have a card using this set a little later on this month as well. So be sure to stay tuned for that. So I do have projects planned out and done. They will just be posted at a later date. I think this is a really unique set because you can stencil those butterflies and then use that cover plate to die cut all of the pieces out. You have the stamp set with that jar and then a beautiful embossing folder. The set that I'm going to create with today is the Flowering Quince, and this is the Build a Garden. So it's got that beautiful outline stamp, wonderful sentiments as normal. There is also your inspiration guide. So this kind of helps kickstart your inspiration, gives you some coloring ideas. There is the coordinating stencil and also a coordinating die. I really do love their inspiration guides that come with the packaging because it's a good starter for me too. If I'm just not really sure what I want to do, it's a great kickoff point. So, as I was thinking about what colors I wanted to do, I was looking at that reference guide and then I brought out my ink swatches. And I have every ink that I have in my stash is swatched out, including the Altenew inks. So, I kind of looked through, tried to find some shades of pink. I really liked that pink. And then also some shades of green to do my leaves. So I reference my ink swatch guide a lot. I'm going to start by stamping my image. So I have a piece of white cardstock here cut to 5.5 by 8.5. I am using my Stamp Wheel 2.0. So I placed my cardstock down in that bottom corner. So it's always going to be lined up there. And then I'm picking up the stamp with my top plate. And I like to condition my stamp by just rubbing my hand over it, or you can use a conditioning eraser. And then I'm going to ink up the image with limestone ink, which is a light gray ink. If you've watched me before with the Altenew releases, this is how I typically will start off. I like starting with that light gray stamping, ink blending, and then coming back in and stamping with a dark color or a black. This way, I have no wait time on waiting for a black ink to dry. I can just go right in and start ink blending and then add the outline later, or I can leave it with that light gray ink if I want more of a no line coloring look. So I am lining up my stencils, and with the Altenew stencils, they do have them all labeled, and there's also some etched lines in there to give separation. So they combine a lot of things on one stencil to help reduce the number of stencils you're getting. So I'm just going through and adding my color. The first layer I did in the light pink, I think was rose quartz. The second layer, the second piece of the stencil, I also did in rose quartz, but I left it in place and I'm coming in with puffy heart, starting more towards the center of the flower and then letting it get light and leaving kind of that rose quartz color towards the edge. And I'm going to do that through all of the stencils for the flower pieces. This is where I had really used that reference guide. I also looked through the stencils to see how many layers are going to be added to the actual flower petals themselves. And there really is only one layer to the flower petals. So this is where we can dig out our different shades of inks and have some fun adding our own depth and dimension with different colors. Now, I am keeping it fairly simple. I wanted this to be more kind of soft and whimsical, kind of a wispy look versus going too dark and heavy handed. So that's why I mainly stuck with the two shades of pink. I went through, did all of my petals, so when I reveal it, it is just beautiful. It's so soft, it's exactly the look I was going for, and now I'm moving on to the leaves. Here I'm starting with Firefly ink, so this is the lightest shade of green in each of the collection or in this collection, and then I'm gonna come in with Grassfield, kind of do the same technique that I did with the flowers, which is starting more heavy-handed towards the center or towards the flowers, I guess I should say, not center, and then letting it kind of fade off. Now, this one has another stencil to fill in different areas of the leaves. So for that, I started with that grass field, and then I can add some darker color a little later. This stencil does also have the centers for the flower, which is where I used butternut. And then I'm coming in this last layer of the stencil, which is adding the detail to the leaves. So for this first part, I use grass field on all of it. And then I came in with a little bit darker shade on some of the areas to kind of give that more contrast in some parts of the leaves. That darker color I used is Shadow Creek, and I forget that it is a super juicy ink pad. That thing is just loaded with ink, and I got kind of a little bit of pooling around some of the edges of the stencil. So I just hit that quick with my heat tool, going over those areas really quick because I don't want to risk anything happening to my sticky mat that I was using. So I'm placing my panel back into my stamp wheel 2.0, lined it up in that bottom corner, inking this up with the obsidian ink, and then stamping that down to bring back that dark outline. This one would have been really great to just leave as is with kind of that no line look and that light gray outline, but I really do like that pop of black. So I'm die cutting it out with the coordinating die. I also die cut another piece from just plain white cardstock, and I'm going to layer these two together just because it's wet, so it's a little flimsy right now, and I want to make sure that this is nice and kind of thick, or not thick, but has stability to it. Off screen, I played around with the design of the card, where I wanted the sentiments go. The Just Because has a coordinating die, so I plan on stamping and die cutting that later. But I wanted to have this smaller sentiment down in the bottom corner, and I wanted that stamped directly onto my card front that is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. So I lined everything up and then removed it before actually stamping the sentiment. And a little thing here is this is actually the second time I stamped it because I was a little crooked the first time. So later on, you'll see my other one on the back side. I just flipped my cardstock over. Now I'm stamping the Just Because using that same obsidian ink. I did condition the stamp, just rubbing my hand over it. It just really helps where the stamp will take ink better if you condition your stamps. I kind of felt like I wanted to have more of a soft, almost glowing effect in the background. So I am bringing in, I think this might have been Puffy Heart that I started with, either Rose Quartz or Puffy Heart. I'm thinking Puffy Heart because it's kind of dark right away. And I'm doing this right in that top corner and having it fade off to white as it gets towards the sentiment. So there'll just be a hint of pink coming down from my arrangement here. The white background looked beautiful as well. You don't have to add the ink blending. I just really like having that ink blending match the color of my flowers. Now I'm going to bring in this titanium white, and I'm going to add some splatters to the arrangement. And I know this might be scary for some. You don't have to add the splatters, but being that it's white and I'm going to mix it with a little water, I think it just gives it also, again, some more contrast to those leaves. And it's just a look that I really enjoy, but you can definitely leave this off. So I'm just picking that up with a paintbrush, adding my splatters, and then I'll let that dry. So once that's dry, I can bring this back in and start putting my card front together. I'm going to add some liquid glue behind it. Normally I would pop up my arrangements, but I already have one layer of cardstock and I knew I had my sentiment yet to do. So I didn't want this to get too high and too bulky. So after that's glued down, I have the Just Because sentiment that I die cut, and I did layer it, I think 1 or 2 times with cardstock. I'm only adding foam tape to the right hand side. That is the part that's going to not be overlapping anything. So I'm going to add liquid glue to the other end and then attach that down. I'll then flip that over and trim off any excess. So I tried to use as much of that floral arrangement as I could. So I didn't have too much to trim off. And then I'm going to embellish it with these pearl dots. So these already have adhesive on the back. I just picked them up with my picker and attached them to the front of the card. And I have a card base. I ran out of my pre-scored card bases, so I had to make one real quick, just out of a heavyweight cardstock. And then I'm going to use my tape runner to attach the card front to the side folding card base. Now, again, this is part of a video hop, so I'm going to have the next person in the hop listed down below in the video description, along with a link to my blog with pictures and also the supplies that I'm using today. Here is another video that I think you might enjoy. Thanks so much for watching.